Hi, I'm actor Ian Champion, and welcome to History of Horror Cinema, my podcast series devoted to the good, bad, and the ugly of horror movie history. Please don't forget to like what you hear and hit subscribe. I have such sights to show you. Man-Made Monster, 1941. Lon Chaney Jr. was cast again by Hal Roach in the prehistoric dinosaur actioner 1 million years BC in 1940. As Akoba, the rock tribe's caveman father to Victor Mature. Among the Oscar-nominated special effects, this film is notable for Chaney's attempt to craft his own makeup in respectful imitation of his father. Stymied, however, by understandable union regulations, Universal soon had him under contract, and his first horror film in his new flush of fame was the lead in the surprisingly effective quickie Man-Made Monster. 5 years previously, Harry Essex's script almost became another of the Karloff and Lugosi team-ups under the title The Electric Man, with the pair playing the victim Dan McCormack and mad scientist Dr. Regus respectively. The plot's marauding, luminous protagonist was felt too reminiscent to their double act in 1936's The Invisible Ray, which I covered in an earlier podcast, and was shelved till Universal's new regime recycled it. Shot in only 3 weeks, Man-Made Monster was indicative of Universal putting little weight of expectation behind it, at a relatively very low budget of just $86,000. They couldn't have known that under director George Wagner, it would emerge as a credible introduction to Chaney in the genre. His character of Dan McCormack echoes the eager-to-please guilelessness of another role that Chaney Jr. played, that of Lenny in Of Mice and Men, as carnival performer Dynamo Dan the Electric Man, whose phony act hints at his destiny when he is the sole survivor of a bus crash that crashes into a live electric pylon. By sheer and contrived coincidence, Dan is befriended by Dr. John Lawrence, another kind, dignified authority portrayal by It's a Wonderful Life's Samuel S. Hines, who just happens to have an associate obsessed with that very source of power, Lionel Atwill's Dr. Paul Regus. Atwill does his best to represent maniacal, self-serving menace in contrast to Lawrence's benevolence in having Dan live with his family while under observation. By now, Atwill was enjoying a run of Universal horrors that began with 1939's Son of Frankenstein, through till the year before his death in House of Dracula in 1945. He would be grateful for the work, as during this period in 1943 he suffered the 5-year probation sentence that blacklisted his reputation into a humiliating dearth of good roles. Knowing his own star is in the ascendant, Chaney is given much more to work with and seizes the role of Dan with compassion and presence. His energy on screen is boosted by Regus secretly blasting him with electricity while Lawrence is away at a convention. The megalomaniac believes he can create a race of electrolyzed, souped-up supermen, invulnerable to weakness, whose only want is electricity. And Dan's odd survival makes him the perfect guinea pig. Over time, the electrical jolts turn from tolerance to a ruinous addiction in Dan, who gradually becomes a listless, walking shell of his former self, fatally dependent upon increasing daily doses to feel anything at all. Chaney earns our sympathy with his gradual decline from sunny innocence to a haunted and damaged victim. Makeup artist Jack Pierce augments this deterioration with etched lines of aging to Chaney's face, through which he emotes his heartfelt confusion. His alienation is amplified by a reverse Midas effect that causes crackling bolts of electricity to sear anything he might touch. No wonder his canine pal, Lawrence's dog Corky, keeps his distance. Such is Regus's merciless drive that finally he shocks Dan to laboratory capacity, erasing Dan's former lightness of soul into a luridly glowing, lumbering, servile automaton, encased in an insulating rubber suit. John P. Fulton of Invisible Man effects fame provides a suitable luminescence for Dan's face and arms, while Regus sheds further light on his own inner machinations to Lawrence. Look at him, the wonder of the future, controlled by a superior intelligence. No prizes for guessing who the latter is. Regus orders Dan, the battery-powered battering ram, to kill Lawrence by breaking his neck. He is powerless to refuse. The aftermath is that Lawrence's daughter June, Anne Nagel, appeals to William Davidson's slightly wooden District Attorney Stanley for Dan's innocence to no avail, As if he hasn't been charged enough, the ensuing court case results in Dan sentenced to an electric chair of all things, and a phosphorescent rampage that would have been welcome if it wasn't off-screen to save money. Never mind, there's still some juice left firstly to power Atwell in a finely chilling scene with Nagel, looming over her with a sickeningly perverse grin of anticipation before strapping her to the operating table. He intends to take his sadism to the even higher voltage of preying on a suspected more potent female subject. Suddenly Dan enters to save the day. Like Frankenstein's lightning-induced offspring, he channels his rage against his quasi-creator, electrocuting him through a doorknob before carrying June away. The police manhunt is now on for Dan the marauding lightbulb. June's boyfriend, news hound Mark Adams, Frank Albertson, who later played Tom Cassidy in Psycho, accompanies them with the DA and even Corky the dog in hot pursuit. The ultimate tragic end for our hapless hero comes courtesy of a ripping time for his suit, snagged on an electrified fence, which may sound prosaic, yet Chaney Sr. would have been proud of his son's movie demise. There is an affecting physicality to the slow buckling of his legs under the terminal energy leakage. An otherwise rushed moment is given poignant weight, something that both father and son could demonstrate with wordless power. It is left to Corky the loyal dog to mourn his friend, and for June's reporter beau to display a rare conscience by burning his notes to save future electro-exploitation of humanity. George Wagner continued in the genre with two more releases in 1941 that we will examine: The Castle Treasure Hunt Horror Island, and then, more impressively, guiding Lon Chaney Jr. to true screen immortality as the Wolfman. Thanks for listening, and if you like what you've just heard, don't forget to click so, and please hit subscribe. If you build it, they will come.